In Full Zoom is presented by Calvo Enterprises, Inc. and IT&E.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to another edition of In Full Zoom. I'm Nestor Licanto, and this week we're going to talk about the Guam Solid Waste Management, and we're going to be talking with the new general manager. His name is Irv Slike. Day, Irv, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
First of all, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how it is that you came to be the new general manager of GWSA.
Okay, well, I started out in this business in 1985, and I've got experience in solid waste planning, recycling, building, siting, and closing landfills, household hazardous waste programs, etc. I've done this work in Virginia, Maryland, Connecticut, Florida, and most recently in Winnipeg, Canada, and now I'm doing it on Guam. So I'm a U.S. citizen originally, but I'm also a Canadian permanent resident.
All right, and this is a long way from home. What did you know about Guam before you got here?
Well, I told the story in the last radio program, so I'll repeat myself. But back in 1997, my wife worked for Parsons Brinkerhoff and for FEMA on disaster relief. And at that time, she was managing the Typhoon Paka that had hit Guam, and also managing, I think, flooding in Philadelphia. So she was covering basically 2 time zones, and I literally didn't see her for almost a month. But anyway, when I did see her, she would relay these stories about the people that she was interviewing, assessing the damage to their house and property, and her job was to sign off on the relief amount for the customer. And she would relate to me that the people that she talked to in Guam were more worried about her. They could hear her voice was tired. And so they asked, well, are you getting enough sleep? When have you been home? Oh my goodness, you need to go home and see your husband, get some rest. Are you eating well? And they were more worried about her than she's thinking, these people, their clothes are in the Pacific Ocean, for goodness sakes. You don't need to worry about me. So at the end of it, as a couple, we had just, we were newly married, 7 years in, and we were just talking about what we would do if we retired. And we had family in Florida, and so Florida was just sort of, that's what we would do. We'd move to a warmer climate. But my wife said, let's keep Guam in mind. And so we did. And then I think it was 2018, I got a call from executive search company, and they were looking for a general manager in Guam. And I said, well, at the time my kids were in middle school and high school in Canada, and I told them I would go home and talk to my wife and call them back first thing in the morning. So I went home, and we're at the dinner table, and everybody's happy and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna rock the boat with this. So I told the guy the next morning, no, it's just too much of a thing. I, don't want to do it. And then, I don't know, like a couple days later, I just happened to mention my wife that some guy called and wanted me to go to Guam, and I turned it down. And she's like, what? Why did you do that? And I'm, you think somebody after you've been married for 25 years, but they always, can throw a curveball at you. So the opportunity came up beginning of this year, I think. And so I applied and went through the process and, landed here October 11th. So here I am.
That's a great story. And we got to credit your wife for getting here to Guam. Welcome.
Yeah, it was a lesson in geography and a lesson in just human kindness. I think that's what really struck her was under the worst circumstances, she found the most agreeable people, in contrast to the hair pulling and stuff for the minor flooding in Philadelphia. It was just a real contrast to her. Still there?
Well, that's great to hear. How has it been so far? How would you compare what you found here in terms of our solid waste system to the places that you worked before?
Well, the
Yeah, I'm
first
still
thing
here.
is, yeah, okay. The first things I noticed was, again, my predecessor, Larry Gast, who I spoke, through the selection process, was literally 8,000 miles away for, the better part of a year. And so I could see the need for, leadership, direction, communication. And it's just hard to do that when you're 8,000 miles away and trying to connect people on Zoom calls at different time zones. So that's what I noticed, right off the bat. I also noticed, some of the decisions that were made financially just because of the COVID impact. There was time to purchase new equipment, to upgrade the phone system, to do all those things that you do when you're holding money back because a good chunk of your revenue won't come in because of shutdown of the economy, basically worldwide. So
Sure.
that's what I noticed first off.
Yeah.
In Full Zoom is presented by Calvo Enterprises Inc. and IT&E. GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information. In Full Zoom is presented by Calvo Enterprises Inc. and IT&E.
So I wanted to ask you about what the governor's comments were at the recent news conference. She said she wanted to implement island-wide trash collection, which I think is a pretty lofty goal. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, we haven't had a chance to sit down with the governor, so I'm really not, I can't really say what the plans are because we really haven't fully discussed them, or the governor certainly hasn't reviewed them at this point. But I can tell you that it was a part of the interview process, so I know it's one of her programs. So we have begun, since I landed here on October 11th, reviewing the work that Larry Gast and some of the receivers' work that was done previously, taking a look at the islands, its routes, making sure that we can match up equipment and basically be prepared from a financial and a planning aspect to make sure that it's successful. I'll point out that I did these kinds of rollouts in Manchester, Connecticut, and most recently in Winnipeg. And so there are some key things that you got to work on, especially the last two. They're very similar. Both jurisdictions had issues with understanding before the residences. So they're it's like most government agencies, the tax agency and the building department, and then the solid waste department have to be sort of fully integrated to know where service should go and what kind of service in terms of trash pickup. So there's a big update on your tax base based on, you didn't know that, like in Manchester, we didn't know that some of the commercial establishments also had apartments and other things, in the building itself. So there's that issue. There's also, you have to pay attention to the speed and ability to communicate to the new resident when the trash cart is delivered and coordinate with your trash collection route. So in Manchester, we would deliver the bin, but there was a miscommunication to the company that was picking up the trash for the next week. They didn't fully understand where the resident lived, or there was, they didn't understand that this rural route that they never had to serve before is now part of that route. So there's a whole understanding of where you need to drive and where people are located that you have to iron out. And then the last thing is, in both cases, when you start a new program and you can, spend a lot of time on the written communication part of it, and that delivery to the cart, there's always questions that people call in. So you need to be, update your call center to handle a big substantial amount of calls that come in and want to know how to use the bin, what should I do? It's just human nature. So
Sure.
those are the things that you really need to pay attention to.
Yeah. Did you find some challenges that are unique to Guam? For example, if people might be living deeper into the boonies and more difficult to access, maybe the roads aren't wide enough for your trucks, or how do you deal with that sort of stuff, and what are they?
They're the same. Guam is no different than Connecticut or even Winnipeg, Canada. They both have parts of the city and municipalities are rural. The streets are basically gravel, so you have issues in the spring, thaw or heavy rain events, and trying to get service back there. So yeah, I mean, in Guam is no different. Understand and really delineate in your routes so that you can plan for excessive rain events. That those particular customers are going to have some issues, so you got to plan for that. So yeah, it's the only difference is there's more palm trees here than than in Connecticut or Canada.
That's for sure. How about the equipment? How have you found that? Is it adequate? You need more, or are you going to be ordering more, or how are you dealing with that?
Yeah, like I said, with the COVID budget, they delayed purchase, so we're going to purchase 4 vehicles. One of them should be an electric small trash truck. So the pricing for those vehicles is very attractive, and I think that's what we'll recommend if we could do the island-wide collection, is to go to those type of vehicles, simply because it's so the typical life, and again, there's a very little emissions, and the maintenance costs overall are lower. So the technicians are hard to find, and it's a new sort of industry, but overall they do show less maintenance than a typical diesel truck. So that would be, like I said, we're going to get 4 new trucks, and we're also upgrading our phone system this year. So those are the big expenditures, and we're going to be buying new carts. So those cart purchases were held off in the past, and we're going to get 3 deliveries in this year.
In Full Zoom is presented by Calvo Enterprises Inc. and IT&E. GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information. In Full Zoom is presented by Calvo Enterprises Inc. and IT&E.
All right. Let's talk about the Luzon landfill. I know that was one of the main jobs of the receivership, so which preceded you, was to close the old ORDOT landfill. I don't know if you've had an opportunity to visit that site yet, and then open up the Luzon landfill, which they did. What's the latest on Luzon? I know there's construction of a new cell underway.
The cell's been completed, and we're actually using it. And the final sign off on all the construction documents will probably be done before Christmas. So we're just getting the as-built survey and final sign off on the liens very shortly. So that project should be finished. I was at the ORDOT public hearing last night with the receiver, and it looks as though that project is also coming to fruition. I think they're going to have the final public hearing on it January 14th.
Okay, so everything seems to be on track. Luzon would be something that will be able to fulfill Guam's needs, growing needs in the years ahead, you think?
Oh yeah, you've got capacity pretty much long after I'll be retired, I think. And it's a good 30 years or more. And I apologize, I sort of forgot the number, but it's something that I wouldn't worry about right now. So I've got a lot of other things to think about. But yeah, you definitely have capacity for a long time.
All right. And, we've been working on recycling for many years. I'm sure you have met Peggy Denny by now. What is your thoughts on Guam's ability to recycle? Because that's something that I don't think we've really quite nailed down yet. There's been some challenges.
Yeah. Right now, Guam is in the same supply chain worldwide issues that everybody else is. So you generate a small quantity of recyclable materials and you rely on exportation to take it to the markets where they would need to go. And that's, right now with COVID, it's a very expensive process, but we're still doing it. And also through COVID, your contamination rate has increased. And so you're no different than mainland municipalities that have seen their contamination rate increase. So the solutions to that particular problem is a public education program, which so far the authority hasn't invested in, but needs to. And the other thing is to really look at trying to find uses on the island itself for the materials. Once you separate them and they're clean, usable materials, try to promote some kind of island reuse for that. So you don't have to look at the worldwide transportation costs as moving that material. So
yeah.
again, that's one of the areas that I'll try to focus on.
Yeah. How about solid waste? The big stuff like the refrigerators, the stoves, the tires, and that sort of thing. I know there's been issues with that in the past. We'd have buyers off island. We would ship that too, but that's kind of dried up. Can you elaborate on that situation?
Well, it's not dried up. It's expensive. I mean, right now our tires are leaving the island and the white goods are leaving the island. A lot more expensive than they were in, let's say, 2019 before COVID. But yeah, they're still leaving off island. I don't know if there's any kind of reuse for those kinds of materials, but I was thinking, more along the lines of glass and cardboard and maybe plastic here on the island.
Yeah. Speaking of plastics, we've had a new law that went into effect, I believe, earlier this year, which bans the use of plastic bags in an effort to help, prolong the life of the landfill, I guess. Your thoughts on that? Is that useful for you?
Yeah, well, it's something the city of Winnipeg did 4 or 5 years ago, and it's it works out. The plastic for city of Winnipeg, the plastic was an issue because it fouled up the recycling sorting machines. So the plastic film was an issue, as well as in a landfill. They fill up with air and they become a litter problem. But by and far, most of the people in Winnipeg have sort of embraced bringing their own bag to the groceries, and it hasn't really been an issue. Of course, they had some growing pains when it was first introduced. People objected, but seemed to comply. I mean, I brought my bags from Canada with me here, so yeah.
And it's really kind of just a mindset, right? Just we became so used to having plastic bags as carryouts for everything, and now we got to bring our own bags.
Yeah, I mean, I think before plastic, that's what people did. They had, I remember my mom had a cloth bag that she would bring in, and yeah, so yeah, it's getting back to kind of what they did before.
Yeah.
In Full Zoom is presented by Calvo Enterprises Inc. and IT&E. GU Self Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information. In Full Zoom is presented by Calvo Enterprises, Inc. and IT&E.
What are your thoughts on, there's been other attempts to reduce our waste or incineration. It got a little controversial because of the contract, but in concept, do you think incineration, particularly for an island, is that a good idea?
I just had a call come in, sorry.
No worries.
The waste to energy.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's a solid waste option. I would point out that it's has been and is the most expensive option to use. I looked on a website just because they have them, and it's called a Waste CapEx site. And they gave, in 2015, these are the numbers. So if you wanted to build a small 40,000 ton per year, which Guam is about 100,000 tons per year, you need to charge 1,000 tons to cover the debt and the operational costs. So you need to charge 1,000 tons to all your users to handle that. And then a bigger plant, of course, brings the cost down. So it's like 250 tons per year, which is twice, almost 3 times what Guam produces. It only brings it down to $680 a ton. So if you try to convert, because Guam's residential and commercial waste is like 60-40 or 50-50, it would be a jump from the $30 to collect it and put it into the landfill to about 100 to 150 per resident. That's assuming the same split with the commercial, who right now pays a $71 per ton fee. So it's just a lot of money, and you need a big population base, and the financial wherewithal to do that. And it makes sense in some of the congested U.S. cities that would have to transport their waste, to a far distance to do that. And also they have a real need for the energy that's folded into that.
Yeah.
I'm too new to the island. I do know that it's a controversial issue, but it seems to me that it's given the space and the time that you have at the landfill, you have the time to really plan out what you're going to do when that landfill fills up, to look at this option, in the future maybe. But for now, it just seems too expensive.
Yeah, it sounds like you're saying it's not cost effective at this time. I just want to ask you one more question about something else, and that is the solid waste transfer stations. I know we've had a back and forth with village mayors in particular about having those solid waste transfer stations. But is that in your mind something that is useful, or maybe might be not, speaking of cost effective, not as cost effective for your operation?
Transfer stations are always useful. And so really the long-term use of them, if the island-wide program goes through, is really an issue for the community to decide. I mean, I can, as a professional, what I've done every place that I've mentioned that I've worked, I lay the costs down, the pros and cons, and it's really a community decision on what facilities they want, where they want them, how they want them used. And I just offer professional advice on how much it's going to cost you, what you need to maintain it and sustain it, and within the entire program. So I really don't know enough. I haven't really worked the numbers, enough, but they were built. They are an asset. They are there. And we will put together a program that shows what happens when you do a bunch of different scenarios. So.
All right, Irv. Final question. Well, you got a message for the people of Guam, and in particular your customers?
Yeah. So my landline here, it's a part of the complaint tree rollover. and I answer it when I'm in the office and available. And I've listened to the customers currently in Guam. They are justifiably angry over missed pickups, delayed service, lack of return phone calls. These are my problems to solve, and I will do so. I took this job because I've managed in 36 years to produce 2 award-winning programs, one in Maryland and the other in Florida. And I want to do the same for Guam. And I want to finish my career with 3 distinguished programs. And both experiences in Maryland and Florida have taught me that change overnight is not as quickly as you would like, but persistence, patience, and professionalism prevail in the end. So just my message is, please bear with me. Myself and my staff, we will work diligently to correct any mistakes that we've got and make sure that the customer service experience is what we hope that it is instead of what it is now.
Great message. That's Irv Slike. He is the new general manager of the Guam Solid Waste Authority. Welcome to Guam. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
All right, and I'm Nestor Licanto. That's it for this edition of In Full Zoom. We'll see you all again next week.
In Full Zoom is presented by Calvo Enterprises, Inc. and IT&E.